Good morning. Good morning. How are we all doing? How the devil are you doing this fine day? It's just the coffee talking. I'm not really that enthusiastic. Hope you all had a good weekend. How did I spend my weekend? I spent a lot of time plotting our next big thing and testing the systems that will allow basically our next big thing to work. But I think I've got it mastered, and we'll be showing that to you in the very near future. However, at some point in the not too distant future, I'm going to be asking for your email addresses, because that's how it will function. Can't tell you what it is at the moment, but if you're in our WhatsApp group, then please look out for a request over there. Alternatively, just send me your email address some way, somehow, and you'll be the first to know what it is that we're up to. Let me see. Where are we? Now, you all know the format of this show by now. I babble a bit, play a video, babble a bit more, play another video, and we rinse and repeat until we all sit around and have a chat about the first thing that comes into our collective heads. Well, today will be pretty much the same, but I would like to flag up a discussion point for after the show. And that discussion point is this: should the health and safety executive investigate workplace suicides? We'll get to that in a second. There's a very good reason I want to raise that as well. And while we're talking about unpleasant things like that, my weekly column dropped earlier this morning, in fact, about 10 minutes ago, and it is called Letting the Bodies Pile High. I think the title pretty much speaks for itself. If you'd like to read it, you can do so using the link that I'm about to post in the chat. But while I'm doing that, let me see. Let me roll the intro. Let me post the question of the day, and let's get this show on the road. Yes, it is Monday, the 22nd of May. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, Case gets its skates on. Volvo operators, roller operators, in fact, get a ride-along assistant, and it's marsh madness for John Deere. Plus, how Allu is... Let me try that again. Plus, how Allu is transforming waste tree bark into a valuable fuel. And we'll get to all of that in just a second. But first, let us peer back through the mists of time to see what was happening on this day in history. On this day in 1455, a little while ago, it all kicked off in St Albans with the opening battle in the War of the Roses. That war would rage for another 30 years. In 1906, the Wright brothers were granted a patent for their flying machine. In 1939, a pair of proper wrong-uns, known as Hitler and Mussolini, signed the so-called Pact of Steel to formalise the alliance between Germany and Italy, known as the Rome-Berlin Axis. They both, thankfully, got their comeuppance as a result. In 1973, President Nixon finally confessed his role in the Watergate cover-up. In 1990, Microsoft released Windows 3.0. Remember it well. In 2013, British Army Fusilier Lee Rigby was murdered near the Royal Artillery Barracks in London. And in 2017, a suicide bombing at the Manchester Arena killed 22 people after an Ariana Grande concert. Now, before we all get into the meat of the show, let me remind you of our question of the day. Yep, that's right. If you were granted a single superpower, what would you choose? Personally, I'm a big fan of the idea of being able to fly. Come and go as I like, head off to the sunshine at a moment's notice, avoid the queues and additional charges at the airport. But what about you? In fact, while we're about it, do you currently have what you consider to be a superpower? Is there something that you can do better than anyone? I mean, obviously, we all know that Ken Hatcher can spot a sprocket at 23 miles away. But what about you? Do you have a superpower? If you don't, what would you like yours to be? And I do need to flag this up. Good morning, Luke Carney, who says, as a quick reminder, PlantWorks 2023 is just 22 days away. 22 days. That's 3 weeks and some loose change. While we're here, thanks for the chase up on the Rod Radar products from last week's show. They got in touch with some pricing. I don't know what the pricing is. I'm sure it's astronomical because I would imagine shipping, the fact that these are being, I guess, handmade or something very similar. But there you are. If you want anything done, you come here and we kind of get it done sometimes. And also say very good morning to morning, Mark. Got my rubber ducks, thanks, says Glenn Johnston. Good man. Thank you very much indeed for letting me know, Glenn. Astronomical would be correct. Fine. Okay, I'm not going to dwell on that for too long. So yes, question of the day: what would be your chosen superpower? And now we do need to start the show properly. Yeah, if you tuned into the Friday afternoon show, our construction equipment news, then you will know that the Case Roadshow is heading to town. Not until September, 14th and 15th of September. The location of the two-day event is not yet known, but in all likelihood, the latest additions to the company's wheeled excavator range will be taking centre stage. So if you can't wait until September, here's what they look like.
Hello everyone, I am Massimiliano Ventura, Product Manager for crawler and wheel excavators in Europe. I am pleased to welcome you to the walk around of our very latest addition to the Case product offering, the brand new E-Series wheel excavators. How does the engine deliver all its power to make the wheel excavator the perfect tool to achieve a variety of tasks in as many different applications as you can think of? It's thanks to the advanced flow-sharing hydraulic system, used by all models below 20 tons, which fine-tunes the machine's behavior in every situation, shining especially during combined movements by always providing the most precise and smooth feedback to the operator. How the excavator responds to the operating input is further tailored by selecting the most appropriate power mode, where the operator can choose among 3 different settings, going from heavy duty to get the most productivity out of the machine, to standard as a balanced power output, to eco when fuel saving is the top priority. But the operator can even set up and recall a 4th user mode by tailoring independently the engine speed, idle speed, pump power and pump flow. Then let's not forget that the engine's throttle in every power mode can be manually adjusted through the jog dial by simply rotating the selector with a touch of the operator's hand.
Pretty smart, right? Now, we actually attended the last Case Eagle Day at the Ritchie Brothers facility up at Maltby a few years ago. Really was a great day out. So keep an eye on the Case diary. When did I say it was? 14th and 15th of September. Hopefully we can all get together and go and play with some Case machines. Yeah, we'll keep you posted as we hear any more about that. But we need one of these. Yes, OAP 282, as we thoroughly enjoy. If you were here last week, Friday, I think, actually, you will have seen how Caterpillar was harnessing technology to provide dozer operators with a bit more assistance. Well, as proof that great minds really do think alike, Volvo are doing precisely the same kind of thing, only they're doing it for their roller operators.
The Compact Assist family offers a complete range of solutions for controlling and tracking the quality of your compaction work. As an entry point into improving your compaction control, Compact Assist Lite takes real-time information from the drum. This gives real-time feedback on compaction, letting the operator know how the material is being compacted. A low value generally indicates that the material is poorly compacted and absorbing the impact, whilst a higher and more consistent value indicates that the material has a higher level of compaction and that you can possibly move on from that area. Compact Assist Lite and all the other Compact Assist systems are fitted as standard with a built-in reversing camera, giving a clear view of any obstacles behind the machine. The Compact Assist Lite system can easily be upgraded to Compact Assist Start. This enables real-time tracking of the machine's position using the inbuilt low-accuracy GPS antenna. The work can then be viewed in terms of pass or CMV mapping. The operator can now see whether the correct number of compaction passes have been made to achieve full coverage of the whole area. The CMV is used for both monitoring the level of compaction achieved, but also for identifying areas where the level of compaction differs from the surrounding areas. Upgrading to Compact Assist includes high accuracy, directional and positioning antennas. The system can connect to both a base station and to the internet to make an RTK connection, which further improves the accuracy of the positioning. Line data can also be uploaded to the machine and be used to help define the working area. Data and job reports are created automatically and can be sent over the air or downloaded by USB. The job reports can be viewed both on and off the machine. To finalise, the Compact Assist family offers a complete range of solutions for controlling and tracking the quality of your compaction work.
Wish someone would design me an assistant, ideally one that could make tea, bacon sandwiches, that could write, present a live stream, basically do everything while I would go and put my feet up on the beach. Who would like an assistant? I'm fairly sure that would be most of us. Let's have one of these. Okay, people, hope you've packed your toothbrushes and your passports. It's time to head stateside to visit a construction company that is working in a demanding Marshland application. And they're being aided and abetted by a fleet of John Deere equipment.
All projects are a puzzle to me because there's a lot of different parts that you got to put together to make the finished product.
When we start a big project, we get our brain trust and we figure out how we want to tackle the job. And then we start working with John Deere and we build out a piece of machinery that's going to get the job done. When you bring it all together, it's just magic. This is a coastal saltwater lagoon, so what we're trying to do is to make a bigger bathtub in the backlands, so when it goes out, it flushes out the inlet that gets impacted by sand coming up and down the coastline. Our biggest challenges on these types of projects, generally speaking, are environmentally related or soft materials related.
When we were sourcing equipment for the project, a lot of thinking that went into equipment selection had to do with low ground pressure.
The dozers, the 850s that we use, have specialized tracks on them for getting around in soft material. The changes in the equipment have been dramatic for me with the gradeless GPS systems. Everything's on GPS, which makes it really nice. You can see your project.
We're going to see an industry that transforms to electric machinery. And from what I've seen, John Deere's on the cutting edge.
John Deere Operations Center saves us money by giving us great insight into our key performance metrics on the job. Just about 100% of that data is generated from the equipment itself. Where is it picking up dirt and where is it taking it to?
To have an all John Deere fleet on a project of this magnitude, where every piece really is critical to the production and the success of the job, is so important. It's been a phenomenal relationship.
Yeah, now this is the part of the show where we all question why you can't buy that kit here in the UK. I wish I had an answer for you, but I really don't.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
And for our final film of the day, we're going to see how Allu, not Allu, Allu is helping to turn waste tree bark into a valuable fuel. And that was one of those rare occasions where Allu's bark is actually better than its bite. Yes. Today's gripe is not really a gripe at all. It's more of an observation. Under normal circumstances, I go to bed. I take some medication for blood pressure and my vitamin D deficiency, have a quick natter with the missus, and then I close my eyes. I'm asleep within minutes. And while I generally get up for a pee at some point in the night, usually about 3:30, I then go back to sleep almost instantly. Unless I have set an alarm for earlier than usual. If I have to be up early for a road trip or to catch a flight, everything changes. I can't get to sleep. I become aware of every single noise and creak around the house. My dog's snoring seems to grow louder, and the worries of the world suddenly invade my brain. Rather than falling asleep in minutes, I lie awake for hours. The middle of the night visit to the loo becomes a constant back and forth as my bladder rebels against me. And as sure as eggs is eggs, I'm wide awake before the alarm bell finally goes off. The one time I actually need to get as much sleep as I possibly can, my body decides that sleep is for pussies. So what the hell is that all about? That's my gripe of the day. I'd love to hear yours. What is it that grinds your gears, gets your goat, and generally butters your parsnips? The daily gripe therapy session, which is mainly a therapy session for me, it would appear. It will return very, very soon. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show, but I do want to have a chat afterwards. So I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll see you on the other side of this for what is now known as the Craic. So here's a final word from our key sponsor. Good morning. Let's turn that down a little bit. How's that sounding? Hope everyone can hear that. Just about. let's go back to the beginning of the chat because I do have something I want to get on to. Ken Hatcher, good morning, Ken, who has that black hole sun once again. Morning, Ken. I hope you're fitting well, my friend. There is our friend, Mr. Sick Note himself, Peter McKenna. Morning, Peter. Good of you to join us. Gary Muirhead is in the house. And Gary, I don't know if you remember this, but the question of the day today was one of yours. You didn't actually inspire it, you came up with it. Thank you very much indeed for the question of the day. The question of the day was, if you could wave a magic wand and grant yourself one superpower, what would it be? And if you have already got a superpower, what you consider to be one, let us know what it is. Nick Drew, I would imagine, is just rechecking the position of the location of his passport, because he and I and my son Fred are heading for the Czech Republic later tonight. Just as a very quick reminder, I won't be here tomorrow. I won't be here on Wednesday either, because I shall be checking out the Bobcats. See what I did there? Yeah. The three of us, and a few other people as well, I would imagine, will be over in the Czech Republic for the next couple of days. So I won't be back until Thursday after today, by which time I will hopefully be fully Bobcatted out. I'll tell you more about that when I get back. Jeff Pinion's in the house. Morning, Jeff. Thank you for joining us. Mark Whiting is here as well. And there is our friend William Forrest, who now knows that he needs to sell large parts of his organ collection to finance his rod radar bucket. I don't want to ask how much it was, but I've got a funny feeling it's going to be quite pricey. Lou Carney, Mrs. Plantworks herself. Morning, Lou. Thank you very much indeed for being here, and thank you for the reminder that it is now just 22 days away. It's 3 weeks tomorrow. Me, Mr. Drew, my son Fred, Peter Haddock, Lou Carney, Gaz Evans, and a whole host of other reprobates and questionable characters will descend upon the East of England showground for Plantworks 2023. Please, God, let the sun shine upon us all, even though none of us qualify as righteous. Jim Turner's in the house. Morning, Jim. Thank you very much indeed for being here, and thank you for all your contributions on WhatsApp over the weekend. Incidentally, we do have a WhatsApp group for the show. If you would like to join it, you can do so using the link that I have just posted in the chat, because I have a button that can do that. Let's have a look who came up next. There we are. Now, Vikas Sahu says hi from over on YouTube. I don't remember seeing that name here before, so as everyone knows, newcomers get some welcome confetti. Vikas, let me know where you're watching from. Love to know where you are, and I'd like to know why you are as well. What brought you to the show? Was it just sheer boredom? Love to know what brought you to the show. Now, our question of the day was, what would be your chosen superpower? As a journalist, invisibility would come in dead handy. There are a number of times when I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall at various industry meetings and discussions and what have you. That would have been very handy. But I am with Ken Hatcher on this. I would very much like the ability to fly. Imagine if you will, that you wake up on a Saturday morning and think to yourself, done my chores for the week, don't have any work to do, wonder what Malaga looks like right about now. That's my Superman fist. I know you can't see it, but and then just jet off, touchdown now half an hour later, because if you're going to fly, you might as well fly quickly. Touchdown in Malaga, awesome. Lou Carney's superpower, quite clearly, aside from her capacity for gin, is quite clearly laying on Plantworks. Thank you very much indeed for that, Lou. William Forrest says, thanks for the chase up on Rod Radar products from last week's show. They got in touch with some pricing. Yeah, again, I mean, I think these products are currently being, for anyone that didn't see it, a Rod Radar is basically a sensor that's mounted on a bucket that detects underground utilities, stops cable strikes and gas main and water main breakages and so on down the line. But my guess is they are A, being made to order, and B, being made to order stateside and then shipped to the UK. So even if they were reasonably priced in the States, I would imagine the price is being well and truly topped up by the time they get here. Glenn Johnston's got his big box of rubber ducks and hats and Lord alone knows what else. Hope you're sporting them all at once. Astronomical would be correct, much as I feared, I'm afraid. Is it there any different from Hyundai other than the colour? I think that's the case machines. Don't know. don't know. Looking forward to seeing some more case machines up close. It's been a while, I have to say. So if it's anything to go by, the last Eagle Day was a great day out. And as Ken says, yes, I was at the Eagle Day. I can't remember exactly why. I was up in that part of the world for something else, and stayed up overnight. Came along to the Eagle Day. Spent some time with the case folks. Spent some time with Pat over at Steel Wrist. And then jumped in the car and buggered off. Sorry I didn't see you, Ken, but we finally caught up at Hillhead last year. There is our friend Mick Norton. Morning, Mick. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Mick Norton says, the technological this is going to be a big one. The technological advances in construction equipment knows no bounds. However, my mate tells me his mechanic had to deal with the aftermath of a 650 horsepower truck engine, £12,000 worth, which had run out of engine oil. He tells me that drivers are no longer allowed to tilt the cabs on health and safety grounds and must rely totally on the cab instruments when doing their pre-use checks, which in this case were faulty. Risk-averse company health and safety officers are clearly not keeping, and I don't know what comes after that because I've only got part of the message. We'll come back to the health and safety executive in just a second. There is the link to our WhatsApp group. Question of the day. Here's a good one. Seeing other people's illnesses. You wouldn't want to look at me. Oh, riddled I am with diseases and I'm not actually. That's a lie. See, this is how a super team is born. Jim Turner can see people's illnesses, and in sweeps Lou Carney, decked out in head-to-toe lycra, because that's what you do when you're a superhero, and you heal those people. You can see it now. Jim and Lou, super team. Now, I did say I wanted to have a chat. I do want to have a chat. One more superpower: the ability to end the CSCS's arbitrary industry accreditation at the flick of a switch. That's beyond a superpower. That's almost godlike, miraculous you're looking for there. Now, here's the thing about what I wanted to talk. So if you were here for our, I'm going to turn this music down just a touch while we're having a chat. When I can find the controls, it's here somewhere. If you were here a week or two ago when we had our evening show about mental health, you may recall that both Steve Kerslake and Andy Stevens, our two guests on that show, were bemoaning the fact that workplace suicides were not required to be recorded under RIDDOR regs, which seemed lunacy to me, but so it goes on. And now, as you can see from that newspaper headline, this is from, I think this is from the BBC. Let me just check. It is from the BBC. Every work-related suicide should be investigated by the health and safety executive, experts have said, in the wake of the death of a head teacher following an Ofsted inspection. The family of Ruth Perry, who took her own life in January, say the inspection put her under huge mental pressure. Very sad to hear about that. She looks a lovely lady, and if she was a head teacher, she's doing right by the youth of today. So, my question, which is not the question of the day, but it is a question of the day, is should the health and safety executive be investigating workplace suicides? And I don't just mean workplace suicides that actually take place in the workplace. I'm talking about those that take place because of the workplace. To my mind, and I'll share my thoughts on this first of all. To my mind, yes, these things should be recorded, because you can't manage what you can't measure. So we do need to get a firm grip on exactly how many people are taking their own lives and the causes thereof. If you think about physical deaths, there is an investigation. There's been one today that I've got to report on yet, about a demolition worker who fell from a platform. So the health and safety executive will look into the causes of that. If we go back to the accident that killed the guy up at Longannet. No, I tell you what, let's go back instead. Let's go back to the scrap yard wall collapse that we reported on a week or two ago. 5 men were killed. Having dug through the archives, it turned out that the Health and Safety Executive discovered that neighbouring companies had actually warned of a potential collapse 2 years before the wall finally came down. So there's a paper trail that basically says we knew there was a problem, they did nothing about it, therefore they're negligent, therefore the people responsible, the 2 company directors, were fined and given 9 months jail sentences. We're not doing that with suicides. So this lady here, Ruth Perry, I can only tell you what is in the BBC story there, but she had an Ofsted inquiry coming up. Obviously, the pressure became too much for her, and she took her own life. Now, that needs to be charted. That somebody needs to go back and say, why was the Ofsted inspection going to be so problematic for her? Was there any sort of shortcoming? But also, was there any signs in the lead up to a tragic suicide? Were there any signs that was a possibility? And if there were signs, why did nobody do anything about it? Now let's apply that to the construction and demolition industry. If it transpires that somebody had been to their supervisor, their site supervisor, or their contract manager, or even further up the chain, and said, boss, I am really struggling here, and that boss had said, tough tits, get back to work and stop being such an old woman, and they then ultimately took their own life, then surely there is some degree of responsibility and possibly even neglect on the part of their employer. Now, the point that at which I'm erring, and I can see we've had some comments coming in, the point at which I'm erring here is the health and safety executive the people to do it? Because I think they've already proven countless times now that they are actually incapable of investigating accidents that are already their remit. Do we need a replacement for the health and safety executive? I'm voting yes on that. But do we also need another body that is taking care of all things mental health related? And, if somebody makes a suicide attempt, should that be logged somewhere as being work related? What about the impact upon those that are working alongside? We've reported several times now, and still find it absolutely shocking, but about a year ago when I first spoke to Steve Kerslake over at Construction Sport, he was talking about a guy that had gone onto a London construction site and literally cut his own throat and died subsequently. And people witnessed that. That surely is one of the most traumatic things you can possibly see. Were they offered counselling? What was done about their mental health afterwards? Were they taken care of? I'd like to think they were, but were they? And again, without a system in place, be it the health and safety executive or some other body that's introduced to take care of this, how will we ever know the sheer extent of all this? I'm going to say good morning to Steve Williamson. Sorry, so late, not a problem at all. You're more than welcome, whatever time you pitch up. Follow-up, risk-averse company health and safety officers are clearly not keeping pace with progress in the workplace, need a damn good kick up the backside. I think that's true within the workplace. I think the bit that I'm talking about outside the workplace, i.e. the health and safety executive, I'm starting to believe that the health and safety executive is already dead. It just doesn't know it yet, or it refuses to accept it. Or industry, and I don't just mean demolition and construction, I mean broader industry, knows that it is no longer fit for purpose, knows that it is no longer funded sufficiently to cope with all the work that it's supposed to be taken care of. But I think industry as a whole probably don't want to face the need for a change. And I think far more importantly than that, I think the government are avoiding killing the health and safety executive, effectively putting it out of its misery, because to replace it will be costly, it'll be time consuming, there'll be all manner of hurdles and obstacles along the way, and there will be criticism. And particularly when you look, I've mentioned this before, when you look at the way that governments, and this is not just a UK thing, but with governments around the world, because you have a limited time span as a politician or as a prime minister or as a home secretary or whatever it might be, it's not really your problem. There's no real desire for ownership of a problem. I think the way that the Conservatives are looking at the moment, it's almost like they want to be out of power at the moment, with one scandal and one cock up after another. So anything that Messrs Sunak and Braverman and Uncle Tom Cobley all do now won't really matter in a few years' time, because it won't be their problem anymore. It'll be left for possibly Keir Starmer or somebody else to try and dig their way out of the mire. And I think that's one of the issues we have with the Health and Safety Executive. I think it's one of the issues that we have with the Construction Industry Training Board. I think if somebody were to offer a magic wand and say, there we are, we fixed it, I think we would all seize upon it. But I think it's seen as too big and too problematic. Peter McKenna says, I'm back, phone died and wouldn't turn back on. Yeah, the stuff you missed. Peter, the stuff you missed. Dancing girls. There were no dancing girls. Majority of people with mental health problems in the UK are not getting the help they need. No, they're not. No, they're absolutely not. And why? I think it's very easy to level the blame at those that are suffering. This idea that men don't talk and stuff. How easy is it to talk? I'll tell you now. When I had my my mental health wobble, the first one, I got to see my GP in about a day. No great shakes, right? Literally phone call, yes, come along and see me. Sat down. She was marvellous and recommended that I attend counselling. That counselling was 8 weeks later, something like that. And I've mentioned this before, but the counselling that was offered to me was a group counselling, which just didn't do it for me. It made no difference to me whatsoever. So ultimately my course of action was, here's some happy pills, keep taking those until you feel better. Something happened. I don't know whether those happy pills may well have been Tic Tacs for all I know, but something somewhere along the line put me back on the straight and narrow for a couple of years before I went off again. But yeah, it's not easy. If I were to have another episode today, I'd probably get to see my GP, but getting any sort of dedicated mental health would be weeks and weeks away. Mine has never been, I've never had suicidal tendencies, never wanted to harm myself or anybody else for that matter. But if you were in that situation, 6 weeks is roughly 6 weeks too long. Yes, now let's see. Mick Norton, with suicides and drug and alcohol abuse not reported under RIDDOR and no moves anticipated to change the status quo legislatively, we must ask the question, are the HSE fit for purpose? Let's do that. Are the HSE fit for purpose? No. That's my vote. Anybody else? Even people with a record of suicide are not always taken seriously. Absolutely right. It is the whole boy who cried wolf thing. I know somebody, thankfully they're still with us, who took a couple of attempts, and they were told, or we were told, after the first attempt, it's a cry for help, and after the second time, it's another cry for help. Does that not tell you something? Should they not be getting help if there is a cry for help? It's not just an industry problem, it's widespread across the UK. Yeah, totally agree. Mental health services in the UK lost almost all of their funding. Yeah, but again, here's the thing, right? And this is why I'm questioning the Health and Safety Executive here. We all know that we're in the midst of a crackdown on site dust. Construction demolition sites are being inspected. If they find any issues with dust, they will be prosecuted. There'll be fees for intervention. But while they're there, the dust gives them a good opportunity to have a bit more of a poke around to see if there's anything else that contravenes health and safety executive rules, whereby they can impose bigger fines. Now, to make a campaign like that worthwhile, or to make that actually happen in the first place, there will be a requirement for funding. Somebody will have had to have created, the posters and the leaflets and the web page and all the stuff that goes with a campaign, a 3-month campaign targeting dust. So there will have been funding there. Where is the funding for mental health related issues? As far as I can see, there is none, as far as I can see. And any money that is sloshing about in the mental health arena seems to be going to charities. I have no issue with charities. We feature the Lighthouse Club here on a daily basis. I have no issue with them. But charities have overheads. They have chief executives, they have boards, they have offices and all the things that go with running a modern charity organisation. So if I were to give a tenner to a mental health charity, how much of that is actually making it to the poor bugger that actually needs it? £5? £1? Pennies? Honestly, don't know. Work-related stress is recognised by the HSE. As you say, the HSE are not capable to investigate. The problem lies elsewhere. Mental health in the UK needs a revamping to suit the times now, not 50 years ago. And how often do you hear that? I'm not going to give the game away because it's only a few days away. As many of you know, I interviewed John Lynch, the new president of the National Federation of Demolition Contractors, on Friday afternoon. We're still working on the edit of the film. I'll be bringing that to you later in the week. But one of the things that he said in that was that the NFDC is now 83 years old. A large part of its constitution and its articles of association were created when the Federation was created. So there was no need at that time for rules about collusion, rules about cybercrime, rules about gender equality, because 83 years ago there wasn't any. There are times, and I seem to see this an increasing amount with technology and the way that the world is changing, where legislators are not keeping pace. Legislators and training providers, I would say, are not keeping pace with developments in the industry and within the world as well. Mick Norton says, ironically, the core values of the HSE are care, compassion, trust and learning. Yes, well, we all have our core values, don't we? How well do we apply them? That's the issue. Peter McKenna says it's easy to talk, but it's hard when you're a man admitting there is something wrong. There is no one-stop fix. Not everyone responds to the same treatment as others. It's funny, actually. Both myself and my sister have been through counselling. Her for bereavement, me for having a bit of a funny half hour a couple of times. Group counselling basically turned me off counselling forever. My sister went to group counselling for bereavement, and it did her a world of good. Horses for courses, I guess. Health and safety executive only concentrate on shite, tick sheets, seat belts, dust, anything else. It's like a hassle. Yeah, absolutely. and maybe, and I'm not speaking in defence of the health and safety executive here, but maybe the fact that all of those things that you just mentioned there, Steve, are tangible. You can actually touch them and feel them. You can see categorically if a seatbelt is being worn or if it's not. You can see categorically whether there is dust present or not. You can check paperwork, and if the paperwork is not as it should be, then your tick sheet will not comply. And you can see that. Mental health, it's intangible. You know, when I had my funny half hour, which turned out to be about a funny hour actually, I was fully functioning. I was at work every day. I took a day off once, I think, and this was something that lasted for about 6 months. I took one day off, and that was purely just couldn't get me head straight enough to actually do my job. But one day off in 6 months, so nobody would have known, least of all a health and safety executive inspector. In fairness, there are some really good people within the HSE. The organisation as a whole needs more government support and a damn good shake-up. I think that's a point well worth making, Mick. The health and safety executive, for all my criticisms, it is grossly understaffed and it is grossly underfunded. Like most of us, I am pretty sure that the health and safety executive inspectors that are there wake up every morning with the express intention of doing good for their job, doing good for the industry within which they work, be that construction, demolition, agriculture, quarrying, mining, whatever it might be. I am sure that they are 100% committed. But how do you maintain that level of commitment when there's not enough staff to do the job and there's not enough funding to add any staff to help out? Impossible. USA is in exactly the same boat as the UK. Does that not tell you something? No one really cares. So it's a tough lesson to learn, that, and it's one I've been through it. And to be perfectly honest, because I was moving on to bigger and better things, it didn't bother me much. But I've worked for companies and I've handed in my notice, and I do remember the last time I handed in my notice with a publishing company. Rather than, we'll be sorry to see you go, you've been an absolute star, is there anything we can do to encourage you? I was greeted with, I hope you're not trying to use your departure as leverage because we can't pay you anymore. And I said, well, I don't want anymore. I'm leaving. The die is cast. Here's my letter of resignation. I'm going. I don't want more money. I'm out the door. I've had two of my children have to experience that, where they were at work, different workplaces, but they were at work and they were convinced that everyone that they worked with, their colleagues, their peers, their superiors, they were all part of this big happy family, and they were all big pals, and they'd go out for drinks and dinner afterwards every once in a while and all that sort of stuff. 'Tis bollocks, I tell you, because you're just a number. And in absolute truth, I mean, both of those left the companies that we're both talking about here, and went on to bigger and better things. But there were no leaving parties, there were no tearful farewells. It was just a case, what, you're going? Okay, well, there's another 3 people waiting in the wings that we'll have you replaced by tomorrow afternoon. Nobody gives a toss. They really don't. And maybe expecting them to do so is, we're kidding ourselves. Mental health charities should be helping people with time off work, pay to speak to someone, things like that, to help people live and not worry about costs and time off work. Yeah. When you look at exactly what it is that is causing so much of, there's an easy set of maths to do here. The suicide rate within the UK construction industry is roughly 4 times the national average. Why is that? Is it because people have problems, mental health problems caused by hard hat wearing or high vis vests? No. The problems are they don't get paid on time. They sometimes don't get paid at all. They have no job security. They're working away from loved ones, their families, friends, support networks. They don't even even if they were suffering in some way with mental health, the first port of call would probably be your GP. But if you're working at the other end of the country for weeks and sometimes months on end, how the hell are you going to get to see a GP? All of that comes together, the perfect storm, and thereby we have a suicide rate that is 4 times the national average. So what would be a good starting point to help those people out? Well, you would have thought that some money in their back pocket might help. Take away the stress of trying to find the next month's rent or the next month's mortgage. Take away the stress of trying to put food on the table for your family. Try and take away the stress of finding Christmas presents when Christmas rolls around, or birthday presents, or whatever it might be. Just alleviate that for a month or 2 and then see where they are. That might well be enough. But as I say, you pour £1,000 into the top of a charity funnel. How much flows out the bottom? Is it £900? Is it £500? Is it £100? Mick Norton says a review 2014 of the Health and Safety Executive has identified that it's fit for purpose and should continue to fulfill its current functions. It also revealed that central funding will be reduced still further. Brilliant. That's just what we need. This means that the FFI scheme will be the only way the organisation will be able to balance its books. That, to my mind, changes the remit of the Health and Safety Executive entirely. There was a time when the Health and Safety Executive was there partly as police force, but partly also as advisory. There's no money in advisory. So I say we, I'm talking about the government here. The government is setting up a situation where we have effectively a private police force. They're not advising that, they won't work with or alongside. They will just basically prosecute. They will be there to hunt out fees for intervention to fund their activities. So what then becomes of guidance that they offer? What becomes of them sitting down with the Institute of Demolition Engineers, the National Federation of Demolition Contractors, the CLC, Build UK, Uncle Tom Cobley and all of that goes out of the window because there's no money for it. When people used to work for food rather than for money, there was less stress in the world. It's interesting that. I don't know if that's actually the case, although I'd like to think it is. But one of the things that I've got a very good friend of mine who actually he refers to money as beer tokens. He's not a big drinker in absolute truth, but he said, when he was first at work and he had no responsibilities, no rent, no mortgage, still living at home and everything else, all he was doing was working to accumulate enough money to buy himself, a new outfit for the weekend and to fund, a couple of pints with the lads or the lasses or whatever it might be. And by and large, he stuck by that. And he's not one of these. He's smart guy, smarter than I am by a million miles. Not that that's saying much, but a really, really smart guy. But he is a very antithesis of the workaholic. He works enough to do what he wants to do, and that's it. Would you like some overtime, Steve? No, thank you. I've got my fill. Thank you very much. That'll do me. I'm going home. Bye-bye. Mick Saunders makes you wonder if psychologists went on site and spent a couple of days just talking to everyone on site, what would they make of it all? I do wonder about that. I've mentioned before, I've got a friend who is an occupational nurse who does visits to demolition and construction sites. And she goes there, is invited along to check on the well-being of the workforce. And the horror stories that she tells you, there are people that are, they have diabetes, undiagnosed diabetes. They have undiagnosed heart, lung and kidney disease, undiagnosed partly because, manly men, we get up in the morning, feel a bit crap, don't have time to worry about that, have a cup of tea and go to work. I think partly that, but also because the job that I have, I've been on the phone this morning to my pharmacist. I need a top up on my regular prescription. It'll be ready in a couple of days. I'll finish doing this show. I'll pop down the pharmacist and I'll pick up my prescription. If you're working away for prolonged periods of time, how do you do that? How do you pick up the phone, to your GP? Can you get to see a GP? Bearing in mind, a lot of people work away Monday to Friday, sometimes Monday to Saturday as well. So by the time you're back home, GP surgery is closed. How do you get by with that? My feeling is you don't. And if we've got all of that going undiagnosed with physical health, a lot of which you can see, I'm not suggesting it for one moment that you can necessarily identify heart disease or liver disease or diabetes by looking at somebody, but it's pretty obvious when somebody's unwell. They go that slightly odd colour and they, maybe they're a bit sweaty or whatever it might be. All of those things you can spot. Mental health is not like that. I know talking to Andy Stevens a couple of weeks ago, if somebody is traditionally a really chatty person and they're a bit quiet, is that a mental health issue, or are they just having a bad day? Or, have they, just got out of bed the wrong side that morning? If they are usually really quiet and all of a sudden they won't stop talking, is that a sign of mental health issues, or have they just come out the shell for a day? It's really, really hard to spot that. So as Mick said there, if a psychologist went on site, I would imagine he would leave shaking his bloody head. Steve Williamson, no one bloody cares until it happens to them or a family member. Act now to prevent it. Instead of being too late and posting stupid posts on social media about look how great we are supporting mental health. That's one of my. I can't do it as a daily gripe because it would go on for the entire length of the show. It's like, you know, I think we're all adults now. I don't think any of us genuinely expect our politicians to act in an honourable fashion. I think we're all old enough and wise enough now to know that most of them are as corrupt as the day is long, and therefore when they do things like Suella Braverman is currently accused of, we don't really bat an eyelid because we all know exactly how that works. What really pisses us off is like the Boris Johnson thing. You must stay at home. You must not attend your grandfather's funeral. You must not gather in numbers. You must not go to parties. You must not go to the pub. You must not have a social life. At the same time he's saying that, there's a party going on 20 yards behind him and he's in there on the sauce immediately afterwards. That's where we have the issue. Press the wrong button. And that's, I think, where I have an issue with demolition construction companies. We are committed to mental health awareness. You say that once a year when everybody else is saying it because it's mental health week. What were you doing last week? What are you doing next week? Why is it that somebody within your employ killed themselves? Why is it that you've got a lot of people in your employ that are off long-term sick because of mental health issues? What the fucking hell are you doing about them? Steve, you and I are of one mind, as is so often the case. Approximately 1 in 4 people in the UK will experience a mental health problem each year. How absolutely astonishing is that? 1 in 4. Now, bearing in mind I live in a family of 6, and I know who the 2 are here. So, but 1 in 4. So if you're on a site right now, I know some of you will be, let's just say there are 16 people on your site. Averages dictate that 4 of those will be either experiencing, have experienced, or will experience a mental health problem. Dan Cullen, no problem at all. Better late than never. Had to move machine around the corner. No problem at all. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. He says, Peter McKenna says, good morning, ladies. No, that's the wrong button. Peter McKenna says, people with mental health issues generally mask their illness, so it can be hard to spot. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Exactly. How are you doing? I'm fine. I'm firing on all cylinders. Wasn't. You know, and bearing in mind, I've been married for 33 years, but I've actually known my wife for, let me think, 37 years. So we dated. Do people date these? I don't know. We dated for a while. We lived together for 3 years, and then we got married. She's known me for 37 years. She knows me better than anyone. She knows me better than my sister. She knows me better than both of my parents knew me. She knows me inside out, upside down, and back to front. She didn't know. She had no idea until basically I did a disappearing act, at which point it all became clear. So yes, Peter, it can be hard to spot. Interesting question. Are health and safety scared of the mental health subject? Do they not have a clue? Are you worried they might make it worse? One of my concerns with the health and safety executive becoming involved in this, and it's something I've already mentioned once, the industry as a whole tends to get awfully excited about mental health. There is a mental health week, which I think was last week. There is a suicide prevention day at some point of the year. No idea when that is. And the industry gets all excited and stuff. You know, we all, but no, mental health and suicide, we're doing our bit. One of the issues that I've been told about is the fact that those that are struggling see that and think, oh, you know, I am not alone. I'm not alone. You know, other people are talking about this, and then a week goes by, and then everybody stops talking about it, and we'll go back to our day jobs. So not only were they suffering from mental health issues before, but when the industry stops its fantastic social media posts and its claims of great mental health awareness, they then feel abandoned as well. So yes, if if the health and safety executive were to treat mental health in the same way that they treat dust, slips and trips, falls from height, asbestos, whereby they pick it up, do it for a couple of months, and then move on to something else, that would be the worst possible outcome, in my opinion. My wife does deserve a medal. You're absolutely right. She totally does. Yes, I agree with Peter. A lot of people do hide the illness by laughing and being a joker. My partner is the same. She knows when something is up with me. Mick Saunders, I still talk to a lot of people who are in demo. I have noticed a change in 70% of them over the last 3 years. The hardest thing is to convince them I see the change in them. They just laugh it off. Sometimes that's easier. Yeah, it's a weird situation, and I don't know if anybody else. I don't expect anybody else to come out with this. So, as I say, I'd had problems. My dad had been seriously ill, which, you know, under normal circumstances, I could probably have dealt with. Son Fred went off to university. He's a mate of mine. I missed him, but again, I'd have dealt with that. And then my best mate, was killed in a motorcycle accident. Taken in isolation, I probably would have just sailed through all three. You know, I've been a bit grumpier maybe and stuff, but they all landed in my lap within about a fortnight of each other. And my brain just went, do you know what? Nah, that's too much. That's too much. And I didn't really know I was struggling until one day I was sat here thinking, I can't really face this anymore. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to talk to the wife. I don't want to talk to the kids. So I drove off. I drove about 3 miles and I parked in the car park. No idea why. Just that's where I ended up. My wife, after a couple of hours, realised I wasn't where I was supposed to be. She started phoning me. I ignored the phone. About 11 o'clock that night, she finally phoned again. And I thought, okay, I'm ready to answer the phone. So I answered the phone, told her where I was. She came up, and the dam burst. And I sat there and cried my eyes out for about 3 solid hours. But until that point, neither she, nor my children, nor my parents, nor my friends had seen any issue whatsoever. And you know, now I've been through it, come out the other side. I've spoken to them about it, and literally not one of them went, do you know, we thought you were a bit off. None of them. Further to that last comment, I know drink and drugs are the main culprit. Is it the culprit or is it the culmination? I've kind of got a foot in both camps on that. I mean, I don't drink, haven't drunk in years, never done drugs, not really my cup of tea. Cup of tea is my cup of tea. So never done any of that. But I can understand people that are suffering mental health wise, leaning upon drugs and alcohol as a crutch to ease the pain and so on down the line. But does it work the other way? I mean, I know there are some drugs that can leave you in a depressed state and stuff like that, but which way around is it? Is it the culprit or is it the culmination? Is it both? I don't know. Peter McKenna says health and safety executives management standards represent a set of conditions that, if present, demonstrate good practice through a step-by-step risk assessment approach, allow assessment of the current situation using pre-existing data, surveys and other techniques to promote active discussion and work in partnership with employees and their representatives to help decide on practical improvements that can be made to help simplify risk assessment for work-related stress by identifying and then the thing runs out. I take it you didn't have that readily to hand. Drink and drugs is generally a coping mechanism. It's not the solution. No, exactly right. I mean, in actual fact, that ends up making it worse because the answer doesn't lie in the bottom of a whiskey glass, for one thing, but also if one of the things that's pushing you over the edge is financial insecurity, and then you're spunking your money up the pub or with your local dealer or whatever it might be, you're actually making the situation worse. Very easy for me to say, pontificating here from the comfort of my chair with a cup of tea on the go. Drinking alcohol don't help, or it helps at the time for temporary. Once it wears off, it makes matters worse. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Dan. Right, people, I do need to remind you very quickly, excuse me a sec. Yeah, I do need to remind you very quickly that at some ungodly hour this evening, I'm heading to the airport to meet Mr. Drew. And we're going to Bobcat. Just by way of a change, Steve Williamson will be hitting the whiskey this weekend. I think that's allowed. Listen, you're a Scot. It's your God-given right. Knock yourself out. Yes, I am going to Czech Republic. Never been there before. Bizarrely, done huge swathes of Europe. Never done Czech Republic, and I don't know why that is. But I'm going to Czech Republic. I'm taking Fred with me, and we're going along with Mr. Drew as well. So tomorrow and the day after, I will be in the Czech Republic. It's allowed on your wedding day, says Steve Williamson. I think lots of things are allowed on your wedding day. All I would say, Steve, is get the wedding off on the right foot. I made the mistake. Of having a blazing row, and I do mean a blazing row, with my wife one Mother's Day. I reckon that would have been 25 years ago. Every single Mother's Day, I'm reminded of that. So enjoy your wedding day, Steve. Don't enjoy it too much, because believe me, my friend, it can haunt you. Mick Saunders says you'll love it there. I'm really looking forward to it. As I say, don't know why I've never been before, but also getting to hang out with Bobcat, who are an absolutely fantastic bunch of folks. I'm actually packing. They very kindly at Balmer gave me a pair of very me sunglasses. They're going with me, along with one of my Bobcat hats as well. So yeah, looking forward to meeting up with the Bobcat gang, and obviously Mr. Drew as well. Enjoy your trip. Safe journey to you all. I'll be back here on Thursday. That's where my marriage went wrong. I don't have a right foot. That should not be as funny as it is, but Peter, thank you for that. Get your wedding off on the right foot. I don't have a right foot. Well done. Right, people, I'll see you on Thursday. Look after yourselves, really. Look after each other. If any of your friends or colleagues are feeling a bit crap, or you think they're feeling a bit crap, go and stick your arm around them. Send them my best wishes and try and cheer them up. Peter McKenna says, have a good time. And Steve Williamson has that. And only Peter could. Yeah, absolutely right. Everybody, I'll see you later. I'll see you on Thursday. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do, which frankly leaves you quite a bit of scope. And I'm going to leave you with that. Had to end the show with a laugh. Well, given the fact that we've been talking about suicide for the last half an hour, Peter, I appreciate that. Back live on Thursday. Steve, I'll see you then. All the best, everyone.